Hey, my pretties, it's the Queen of Lions here, episode 155 of Shadows and Pretties. Today, I'm going to be reviewing a Scooby Doo movie called Scooby Doo in Where's My Mummy? This one came out in 2005 on November 24th. It was released on VHS and DVD in the United States and Canada upon December or 13th, 2005. It was produced by Warner Brothers Animation. Although it featured a logo and copyright for Hanna-Barbera Cartoons, Inc. at the end, this is the last Scooby Doo film to have a VHS release until they started releasing it on DVD. So, anyways, I'm gonna sit here and basically get started with this um American adventure film in the ninth series of the direct-to-video animated films based on Scooby-Doo Saturday morning cartoons. So this one did have a limited theatrical release in the United States from May 13th, 2005. And of course, the film was aired on Cartoon Network in November of 2020, 2005 on, the 24th. Pardon me if I got things mixed up. So, yeah, anyways, I thought, you know what, I'll go ahead and review this movie because, I hadn't did a review on a Scooby-Doo movie in oh god, in a long time. The last time I did this movie review was probably on the 31 Days of Scooby-Doo, which, that was back in 2019. So, yeah. Anyways, this takes place in the year 41 BCE. Cleopatra, who was fleeing from the attack of the Roman army after her navies defeated the Battle of the Arcanum. She goes into her tomb beneath the Sphinx to bury the treasure, which is granted by the army of the undead, and summon a spell to protect the hidden treasure. Meanwhile, cuts to the present day. Velma is restoring the Sphinx, or resorting the Sphinx, storing the Sphinx, and has come across the ancient necklace. Then she goes to show Prince Omar, who is leading the restoration. They accidentally discover a tomb of Cleopatra. Meanwhile, the gang, who hasn't seen Velma in 6 months, they go to Egypt and to surprise her. However, the mystery machine runs out of water in the radiator in the middle of the desert. So Scooby and Shaggy try to find water in the mystery machine and find a lake with water, which turns out to be a mirage. The gang then meets with the Egyptian named Amali Ali Kabar and his hawk Horus, and Amali is able to use the camels to tow the mystery machine to get help to get the gang to reach the Sphinx. They meet the Fear Facers host Rock Rivers, whose show was recently canceled because he faked some footage. He then tells them in Egypt investigating the curse. Scooby picks up the scent of the old nose radar and leads the gang to Velma. Velma is surprised to see her friends, and Daphne notices something around Velma's neck. And Velma shows the gang that it was the ancient necklace that she found. She introduces the gang to Omar, and they start to explain the curse. Suddenly, the gang is surrounded by a swarm of dirt bikes and helicopters, but Dr. Amelia Von Butch, an archaeologist and treasure hunter, steps out of the helicopters and proceeds to the tomb. Now, Velma and Omar plead Von Butch not to enter the tomb by telling her about the curse, which she says whoever enter will be turned to stone. They are not successful, and Von Butch and her team use explosives to open up the tomb. Unleashing the curse, outside the sandstorm, it begins with the gang, having gone out to investigate, runs back to the tomb to find Omar turned to stone. Despite the curse, Von Butch decides to enter the tomb, and Fred decides to solve the mystery. Although Velma protests and saying it's too dangerous, ultimately she agrees, as Shaggy and Scooby want to guard Omar, but Fred tells them that they should not split up, and the gang follows Von Butch, setting off a trap in the process, separating Shaggy and Scooby. Shaggy and Scooby get attacked by an army of the undead, and soon after the rest of the gang, Von Butch and her minions, are also attacked. Shaggy and Scooby fall down a hole, causing Scooby to lose his collar. Velma then slips onto the ground and drops her glasses, A mummy hands him back and she gets attacked. Fred and Daphne hears her screaming and they run to save her, but they find Velma turned into stone, so they take the journal and the necklace. While Fred and Daphne continue searching for Shaggy and Scooby until they bump into a rock river. Together, they search through some of the tomb and discover that the necklace is the key to the curse. They meet up with Von Butch and they're all attacked by Cleopatra. Cleopatra releases a swarm of locusts, but Fred and Daphne escape on one of Von Butch's dirt bikes. Shaggy and Scooby discovered a lost city, where they're mistaken for returning Pharaoh Ascubus and his lanky manservant, Shag and Common. That's pretty interesting names. I guess they're inspiration of this Sphinx and these Egyptian creatures or something like that. I think it's pretty interesting how the history of Egypt is played very well in Scooby Doo. Like, I honestly knew that something like that was going to happen in the future of Scooby Doo movies, and they finally did. In the Lost City, Shaggy and Scooby Doo are being honored with a feast, and the Lost City's leader, Hotep, who explains that people in the village choose to live like pharaohs of old. During the feast, Hotep sneaks away to his secret chamber. In a nearby town at a bazaar, Fred and Daphne get attacked by disguised Von Butch and her henchmen, Campbell and Natasha, and Fred and Daphne gets hit by sleeping powder as Von Butch steals the necklace from them. Later that night, Amani finds Daphne and Fred and wakes them up. He tells them that Horace is looking for Scooby and Shaggy. Horace finds Scooby's collar and leads them to where he found it. Meanwhile, Hotep attempts to feed Shaggy and Scooby to his spirits of the sand, but the spirit is revealed to be a robot when it falls into a river. Fred and Daphne arrive with Amani, who helps Hotep to be warned with the brilliant civil engineer named Armin Granger, who is illegally damming the Nile River, and he is taken away by the authorities. With sad, heavy hearts, Fred and Daphne tell Shaggy and Scooby about what happened to Velma. Devastating them, Daphne gives back Scooby's collar until she realizes that Von Butch stole the necklace. Now, the gang comes up with a plan, and Fred and Shaggy and Scooby enter the tomb, discover rock rivers, which has also been turned into stone. Meanwhile, Von Butch is kidnapped by the mummies. Shaggy and Scooby disguise themselves as mummies to sneak in, but are soon discovered. Cleopatra arrives and turns Von Butch's minions into stone. Fred signals Daphne, dressed as Cleopatra, and then leads the mummy, composed of the citizens into the lost city, into Cleopatra's tomb. In the chaos, Von Butch sneaks into the chamber, stealing the crown of Cleopatra, causing the Nile River to burst through the tomb. Undamming the Nile and flushing out the riches hidden in the tomb, thus restoring the treasure to the people of Egypt, according to Cleopatra's last wish. The mystery gets solved when it's revealed that Cleopatra's mummy was really Velma, who had planned the whole thing along with Prince Omar and his workers in order to scare away the treasure hunters. They had meant cement copies of themselves to pass off as victims of the curse. Now Von Butch and her team get arrested and taken to prison, while Velma apologizes to gang for not letting them in on her and Omar's plan, but claims that she did it just to protect them, feeling that it was too dangerous to include them, that if something were to happen to them. She would never forgive herself, and she begs for her forgiveness. The gang forgives her, and sometime later, the restoration of the Sphinx is finally completed. When Shaggy fires a jumbo-sized firecracker, it hits the Sphinx's nose and once again falls off. Omar states that the Sphinx looks better that way. The gang shares a laugh, and that's how the movie ends. Now, when I first watched this movie as a kid, I remember really liking this one Scooby Doo movie. I mean, I've seen a lot of Scooby Doo movies, and even as a kid, I've always loved Scooby Doo, and this was honestly one of my favorite Scooby Doo movies of all time. So I'm gonna sit here and say there is a lot of great aspectation and concept with, having Scooby-Doo, not take place, like, for example, Zombie Island, they take place into a bayou, aka, well, swamp, which is Ghost, it takes place in a village that hosts, like, an autumn fest, and then Alien Invaders, it takes place in the desert. Well, in this movie, it takes place in a country called Egypt. It's not taking place in the USA, not like most Scooby-Doo movies do tend to do that. Although, I mean, Scooby Doo did, you know, Legend of the Vampire did take place in Australia. But in this one, on the other hand, it takes place in Egypt, which, I mean, I like the history of Egypt, but never liked the country of its own self, especially with how it is right now. So, anyways, that being said, I like the voice acting of this movie. I honestly thought it was really neat. I still like the fact that Casey Kasem was, Shaggy in this one. And I would have to say, this is actually one of my favorite Scooby Doo movies. Like, I know there's a bunch of other ones, but this is actually one of them that actually had a really good concept. I do like how everything went out. I also really like how the concept, Velma and Omar planning on a plan instead of, the whole gang does, like, most of the time. I do like the fact that, Shaggy and Scooby were dressed in, Egyptian costumes and that. I mean, I really thought it was neat, to be fair. I mean, I haven't watched this movie in like a long time. I watched this when I was a kid on TV, and I honestly really still find this movie to be, enjoyable, and it's a really well made movie, especially with the filming. Like the filming of its own self, the um basically, oh my god, I'm having brain farts here. I am so sorry. I have brain farts, and this is one of them I'm having right now. I do like this movie. I think this movie actually did really great. I like the fact that it took place in Egypt. I like the whole concept of its own self, of how this movie went out. I do like how well made the animation of it is. I really like how well the animation went out, as well as, the good concept history in that. I do like the villains in this. I think the villains did a pretty good job, designing the villains. I mean, a lot of villains, like for example, the cat creatures, Ben Ravencroft, and etc., they did pretty good. I mean, every time there's a Scooby Doo villain, they always make it, sound really unique and make it more interesting, so then everyone gets the whole idea, oh, that's who the villain is, and stuff like that. But in my opinion, if you like Scooby Doo, I recommend you guys check out this movie. You will not be disappointed. I actually do think you'll enjoy this movie as much as I did. But yet, I'm gonna say, if you're not a fan of this movie, or if you don't like this movie, I respect your opinion, because I'm willing to respect people's opinions as long as you're respectful. Anyways, with that being said, that's just my opinion on this movie. If you disagree with me, that's fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions regards to these movies, and this is simply my own personal thoughts. But what did you guys think of this Scooby Doo movie? Did you all enjoy it? Did you all not? Also, what you have done personally to help make this movie a lot better? Feel free to leave me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. And if you're new to this channel, feel free to leave me likes, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload. And because I upload pretty much every day, because you know me, I don't have anything going on unless said otherwise. But other than that, yeah, I'll be seeing you in the next video. Peace out. And as always, I'll see you all next time.